Try that again.
That's
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Puri Vrajakacharya Ashtottara Satashri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 in New York, and we're picking up with Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 13, text number 32. Tata sadhaya bhadrang te atmanam. Wait, I should also say, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tata sadhaya bhadrang te atmanang suprajang ripa. Ishtaste putra kamasya putrang dasyati yajnabuk. O king, we wish all good fortune for you. You have no son, but if you pray at once to the Supreme Lord and ask for a son, and if you execute the sacrifice for that purpose, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will fulfill your desire. Tata svabhagyadheni Tata svabhagadheyani Grahishyanti divokashaha Yad yajna purushaha sakshad Apatyaya harir vritaha. When Hari, the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their shares in the sacrifice. Purport. Whenever a sacrifice is performed, it is meant for satisfying Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of the fruits of all sacrifices. And when Lord Vishnu agrees to come to a sacrificial arena, all the demigods naturally follow their master, and their shares are offered in such sacrifices. The conclusion is that the sacrifices performed are meant for Lord Vishnu, not for the demigods. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So just to recap a little bit, the persons speaking these verses are the priests in the sacrifice of King Anga, who was trying to get a son. And the problem was that no one was showing up for the sacrifice in the category of demigods. They were invited, apparently, and the king asked the priest what offense he had committed, and he said the demigods are not taking part in the sacrifice, they're not accepting their shares, so something's off. And the priests checked. Apparently they were able to check into the king's past life and determined that there was some sinful activity that rendered him sonless in his present life. That was the only thing they found. They don't specify what that sin was, nor could I find it elsewhere. But now they're telling him, there's hope. If you perform this sacrifice with the aim of getting a son, then, and you perform the sacrifice to Lord Vishnu specifically, then the demigods will come. They'll come with Lord Vishnu, and the Lord will fulfill your desire. I had one question. I'm sure this has come up before in classes dealing with verses of this nature, but I've forgotten because it's not so explicitly spelled out in our literature what it actually means when it says that the when we're talking about shares of a sacrifice here. Since it's not specified what it's meant by shares, one can naturally question what do the demigods get as a result of these sacrifices being performed. But Maharaj, if you had other thoughts you'd like to share on this verse, we'd be very happy to hear them. Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamai Hyam Dadati Shupadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrashatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamstra He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamam Paripu Panchakol Tatarubhyascha Kripa Sindopyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Ram. When Raghunath Das Goswami performed the arranged for the Chiradoi Mahotsav, the festival, the great flat rice festival at Panihati. At the end, he arranged for some contribution, and everyone was supplied with food up to the neck. And then Raghunath Das provided some gold coins and maybe to Swarup Damodar, to one of Mahaprabhu's intimate associates, along with a sort of a direction, this many for the most intimate associates, this for these people, this for that people, sannyasis this much. So everybody got a share. The festival was performed for the satisfaction of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, but everybody else was given something to as their share. So similarly, when the demigods are worshipped, when Lord Vishnu is worshipped, then the associates of Lord Vishnu also share in the program. They get something. What they get depends on what's offered. They get a share of what's offered, whatever that might be. I don't have more to suggest than that. Yagya Vai Vishnu, except that Taittiriya Upanishad had said that sacrifices, Lord Vishnu is, the sacrifice is not different from Lord Vishnu, or the sacrifice is meant for Lord Vishnu. Vasudeva Paramukha. Vasudeva Paramukha. Yes, sacrifice is meant for Vasudeva Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions on this before we decide to move on? Okay, we have text number 34, which has a purport. Madhupati Prabhu is here. Prabhu, would you be willing to read our text 34?
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Gurudas Jayadvaita Swami. Kam tan kaman hari dadya yan yan kamayate jana aradito yatai avaisha Tatha Pumsham Phalodaya. The performer of the sacrifices under karma kanda activities achieves the fulfillment of the desire for which he worships the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he awards benedictions to the worshipper according to his desire. The Supreme Personality of Godhead gives all living entities conditioned within this material world full freedom to act in their own way. But to his devotee, he says that instead of working that way, it is better to surrender unto him, for he will take charge of the devotee. That is the difference between a devotee and a fruitive actor. The fruitive actor enjoys only the fruits of his own activities. But a devotee, being under the guidance of the Supreme Lord, simply advances in devotional service to achieve the ultimate goal of life, to go back home, back to Godhead. The significant word in this verse is kaman, which means sense gratificatory desires. A devotee is devoid of all kaman. He is anyabhilasita sunyam. Anyabhilasita sunyam. A devotee is always devoid of all desires for sense gratification. His only aim is to satisfy or gratify the senses of the Lord. That is the difference between a karmi and a devotee. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmitanena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. This verse with its mention about the performer of the sacrifice on the karma kanda activities achieves the fulfillment of the desire for which he worships the Lord. And the Lord mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatham mam prapadantam tataiva bhajamiyam. According to the desires of the living entity, the worshipper, the Lord fulfills. Right? He awards benedictions based on the worshipper's desire. So the living entity has a free will. He can act on his sense gratificatory platform and perform sacrifices for fruitive gains or um, um, be a devotee of the Supreme Lord. Bhaktya mama bijanati yava sasmita tvataha. Right. Only by devotional service the Supreme Lord can be known. So he can be a devotee of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord can grant tesam sataviktam bhajatam pritipurgam dadami buddhi yogam tam. He can provide him intelligence to worship him. Right. So that he can advance in his devotional service. He can advance in devotional service. Even if it is not completed in this life, he starts from very left in this life. Niyabhikamana stosti pratyavana vidyate. Right. So, a karmi on the other platform here, Srila Prabhupada mentions this word, the word kaman is used, which is for sense gratificatory desires. But a devotee is devoid of all sense gratificatory desires. He is anyabharichata sunya, fixed in his devotional service, and his aim is only to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada nicely mentions the difference between a karmi and a devotee in the purport. Yeah. That's all I had.
Jai Prabhu, thank you so much. Maharaj, would you like to comment here?
I don't think I have anything to add. Good. Nicely covered.
Jai. I shouldn't fail to welcome Yadunandan Prabhu to our meeting. Hare Krishna. Our respects to you.
Hi.
You're certainly welcome to read, Prabhu, if you'd like to. We're up to text 35. If you'd like to read, that's cool. If not, that's also cool. Or Saraswati Mata, if you're able to read, we can pick up 35.
Okay, text 35. Iti vyasita vipras tasya ragna prajataye purudasham nirvapanan shipi vishtaya vishnuve. Translation. Thus, for the sake of a son for King Anga, they decided to offer oblations to Lord Vishnu, who is situated in the hearts of all living entities. Purport. According to sacrificial rituals, animals are sometimes sacrificed in the yajna arena. Such animals are sacrificed not to kill them, but to give them new life. Such action was an experiment to observe whether the Vedic mantras were being properly pronounced. Sometimes small animals are killed in a medical laboratory or to investigate therapeutic effects. In a medical clinic, the animals are not revived. But in the yajna arena, when animals were sacrificed, they were again given life by the potency of Vedic mantras. The word Shipi Vishtaya appears in this verse. Shipi means the flames of the sacrifice. In the sacrificial fire, if the oblations are offered into the flames, then Lord Vishnu is situated there in the form of the flames. Therefore, Lord Vishnu is known as Shipi Vishta. Om Gyanan Timirindasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Pranams Param Pujya Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas. So we know that this sacrificial ceremony has been set up in order for King Anga to get a son. This reminds us of other instances where kings have also performed sacrificial rituals in order to get a son. I'm thinking of, there was King Drupada, and he specifically wanted a son who could kill Dronacharya. So that was out of vengeance. And of course, there's been King Dasharath and I think even King Sagar from the same Ikshvaku dynasty, and he had two wives, and one of them had like 60-something thousand sons, and the other wife only had one son, but that son turned out crooked as well, like Veena. He was quite evil. And then I'm also thinking of King Nabi, who performed a great sacrifice in order to get a son as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was successful. Lord Vishnu appeared and granted him the boon. But Srila Prabhupada comments that even wanting a son as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is still under the category of a material desire. Srila Prabhupada, I can't remember the exact words, I'm paraphrasing, but Srila Prabhupada said words to the effect that whether that desire is, to have a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether a desire is great or insignificant, it's still under the influence of Maya. So that sort of surprised me, because we know that pure devotees are in a relationship with Krishna in the Vatsalya Bhav, let's say, and that's how they want to relate to Krishna. So I, for myself, am not 100% sure, and perhaps Maharaj can clarify how King Nabi's desire to have a son as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his son was Rishabdev, who was a direct Shakti of Ish avatar. What the difference is there. And just talking about these animals that are sacrificed, we know that when Vedic mantras, to test the potency of Vedic mantras, the Brahmanas the animals that were sacrificed would have life anew. You compare that to the modern science where these animals are, for cosmetic reasons or to test drugs or for whatever reasons, these animals are treated very cruel, and they're basically killed. And there's sure to be a karmic reaction that has to go on to the scientists and all those big firms, pharmaceutical firms or whatever, that are paying to have these experiments done on the animals. So these are just some of my comments. Oh, yes. And the last thing, that any sacrifice that is performed is always, the purpose is always to satisfy Lord Vishnu. And in Bhagavad Gita, they have the verse, Bhoktaram, Yagya Tapasham, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Shurdam Sarvabhutanam, Gnatva Mam Shanti Ruchiti. So Srila Prabhupada said one has to understand these three things, that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, Krishna alone is the supreme enjoyer, Krishna alone is the proprietor of everything material and spiritual, and Krishna is the supreme friend of all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mata. Thank you. Maharaj, would you like to say something here?
Yeah, as I recall, it's pointed out to us that there's a difference between wanting to have a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead and wanting to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one's son. The desire to have the personality of Godhead as one's son is completely spiritual desire. The desire to have a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not on the same platform. Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. So in the case of King Nabi, I'm not sure if he was a little bit embarrassed. I don't want to speculate too much, to ask for the Lord to be his son, because sometimes there could be this feeling that you're sort of embarrassed to ask for something as great as that. But Rishabdev, of course, we know he was a great king and empowered incarnation. So I'm still not sure how that could be so wrong of what King Nabi asked, because the result was he got King Rishabdev.
You're not sure why it's so wrong, you said?
Yes, I'm still not sure how that could be completely an influence of Maya.
Does it say, is that commented that it was by the influence of Maya that he wanted that?
Yes, in Canto 5, that's what it said, that it's an influence of Maya.
I'd have to see the verse and the context. I'd have to.
Oh, I can just pull it up. It said Maharaj Nabi was inclined to performing great sacrifices for begetting a son. The son might be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but such a material desire, be it great or insignificant, is brought about by the influence of Maya. A devotee does not at all desire anything for sense gratification.
Okay. I haven't, I'm pulling up the verse myself, but even if we think that the desire was because of the illusory energy, still he must have performed greatly pious activities in order to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son. The verse number there? Hello?
Yes, it's 5, sorry, Maharaj, 5:3:14.
Ka va ihate parajita ya mayanam pasita padavyana vrata matir Vishya Visha Rayana Vrita Prakritir Anupasita Mahacharana. Okay. 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 This is Maharaj Nabi's own prayer, if I'm not wrong. Kava iha te aparajita aparajitaya maya anavasita padavya anavrita mati. He himself says, unless one worships the lotus feet of great devotees, one will be conquered by the illusory energy. And anavritamatihi, his intelligence, avritamati will be bewildered, because Visha, he's after sense gratification. So in one sense, this is Maharaj Nabi's own assessment of himself, that I'm after some material benefit. I want a son. So that's a material desire. That appears to be and Prabhupada, what would you say, contextually picks that up, that yes, this is a material desire to want to have a son. But still the Lord took it, he wants to have a son like me, he's my devotee. So he took what would you say, the favorable view. Whereas Maharaj Nabi took an unfavorable view of his own motives. Is that all right?
Yes, thank you so much.
Prabhu Krishna Prabhu has, it looks like a two-part question here. Whom were they offering, or let's say, I'll read it as it sits. Whom were they offering before when none of the demigods came? That's part one. How is it that it works the second time, since it is Lord Vishnu who is to be pleased both times? Thank you for asking. That was also my question.
Yeah, I also might have the same question. We'd have to look back and see what was going on there. And let's see if we get an answer that way. Well, it comes up in text 25. And there's no particular indication of where it was going. It just says it was an Ashwamedha Yagya. Let's see if there's anything more. Please. No, indication. So I don't really know. I don't have the insights about it.
I'm not sure, but Maharaj Srila Vishwanath may offer some clue in his commentary, because it just says in his in the rendering of text 25 there, it just says the devatas called by the brahmanas did not come there. In the following verse, the devatas do not accept the oblations we have offered. There's no mention specifically of Vishnu there, but neither does he nor does Srila Prabhupada comment that this was the problem, that they didn't specify that this was a sacrifice for Lord Vishnu, and therefore that was the discrepancy right there. It just that's as far as it goes, because there's no commentary for these verses in Srila Vishwanath's text.
But it is emphasized there, 35 and so on, that it was for Lord Vishnu. And that, as you said, in the earlier verse, 25 is just not mentioned. 25, 22, well, the demigods aren't taking their shares and so on. But it doesn't, Lord Vishnu is, what would you say, absent by not being mentioned. And later he's explicitly mentioned.
And Saraswati Mata offers that verse 33 indicates they didn't invite Hari before. So I'm looking at 33 now. Yeah, it's implied but not explicit. Then the devatas will accept their share of the sacrifice. I'm reading Srila Vishwanath's version, since the Lord of sacrifice will be present for giving a son. And this doesn't particularly address that point, but I was curious as we were reading our last verse here, text 35, since the word Purudasham is mentioned, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti seizes on that. That's what was offered, this Purudasha. So I thought, that looks familiar. I wanted to see where I had seen that before. And Purudasha apparently is a sacred rice cake. And it's explicitly mentioned in the words of Shishupal, actually, in the arena, when Krishna is receiving, is nominated to receive the Agra Puja, and Shishupal gets all bent out of shape, and the commentators there draw heavily on Srila Sridhar Swami's verses or commentary on the verse, speaking specifically about this Purudasha, which is apparently a sacred rice cake that's offered to lesser demigods, as opposed to Soma beverage, which is offered to the non-lesser demigods, I guess. But anyway, that's just a
Purudasham. Yes. Let's see if we know anything more about that.
in the word for word for 35, it just says it refers to the paraphernalia of sacrifice.
Yeah.
I also looked up in the Prabhupada Disciples database whether or not Srila Prabhupada had ever named anyone Shipi Vishta. I thought that was an interesting name mentioned at the end of the purport there, but no. Ross Prabhu, are you able to read our text 36? If not, I can do.
Yes, Prabhu. 36.
Yes, sir.
Prusha Tastu Hema Mali Amalab Bra Hiran Mayena Patrena Siddham Adaya Payasam. Translation: As soon as the oblation was offered in the fire, a person appeared from the fire altar wearing a golden garland and a white dress. He was carrying a golden pot filled with rice boiled in milk.
If you like, please go on until we get a purport.
Okay. Sa vipran numato raja Kritvanjalina danam avagraya muda yukta pradat patnya udara di. Translation: The king was very liberal, and after taking permission from the priests, he took the preparation in his joined palms, and after smelling it, he offered a portion to his wife. Purport: The word Udaradi is significant in this connection. The wife of the king, Sunita, was not fit to accept this benediction, yet the king was so liberal that without hesitation he offered to his wife the boiled rice in milk prasad received from the Yoga Purusha. Of course, everything is designed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As will be explained in later verses, this incident was not very favorable for the king. Since the king was very liberal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to increase his detachment from this material world, willed that a cruel son be born of the queen, so that the king would have to leave home. As stated above, Lord Vishnu fulfills the desires of the karmis as they desire. But the Lord fulfills the desire of a devotee in a different way, so that the devotee may gradually come to him. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Adami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Upayanti Te. The Lord gives the devotee the opportunity to make progress further and further, so that he may come back home, back to Godhead.
Anything to share?
No problem.
Maharaj, would you like to say
Yeah,
something?
an observation there is Muda. The king was delighted. The Yogya Purusha has appeared. He's given this sweet rice, and so it's going to work. And Muda, he's overjoyed. So as we'll see in the text, as the text unfolds, his joy was grounded in illusion. If he knew the full story, he wouldn't have been overjoyed. But just seeing that this portion, okay, I wanted to get a son, now I've got a son, so he's delighted. But as we'll see, his delight turns to disappointment and frustration. And sometimes we see that. We see someone, a devotee, non-devotee, who's getting his desires awarded, and everybody's in, happiness and yeah, everyone's overjoyed. But a sober person, Tiras Tatra Namuhyati, he's sort of, from a detached point of view, he has a different understanding. He's seeing, well, maybe he's seeing, okay, this person's, now he's delighted, but later he'll be frustrated. He's getting the results of his aspiration, but there's no possible way he can be happy this way. He can't be very intelligent, because an intelligent person wouldn't be taking joy in something that has a beginning and an end. In so many ways, the detached person may be, what's the word, at least skeptical, or or just aware that this is not likely to satisfy the delighted person. And I can think of examples. One comes to mind of a person on his wedding day. He was just, I saw the pictures. He was really delighted. And then later his wife was unfaithful to him and various other things occurred. So, pariname vishamiva, the nectar in the beginning turned to poison later on. So it's not very good to invite sannyasis to your wedding because they just may not be quite in sync with the mood. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Maharaj. Praveen Krishna Prabhu has something here. He says, it was mentioned before that one who is sinful won't get a son. Can it be that to have a sinful son is also due to one's sinful deeds?
Certainly. It's not that one who's sinful can't get a son. There's lots of sinful people who get sons. So it's certainly possible. But in the case of the king, it was ascertained, well, you're wanting a son, but you're not getting a son. So that's due to some blot on your history. And that's the way of karma kandya also. There's everything may be all lined up, but if there's just one unfavorable thing, then your program can be spoiled. That was the problem with King Nriga. He had so many pious activities lined up, but he made one mistake. And so his program for happiness through pious activities, karma kandya, was spoiled. Now let's see. Having gone off on that tangential direction, I've now forgotten the beginning of what I was answering. This is old age is not fun. Do you want to prod me for where I was there?
Well, the question was whether one who is
Yes, sinful. Why he? Yes. Is having a sinful son due to one's sinful deeds? Generally, yes, although it may be, as we'll find later, sort of a blessing from the Lord. Even a person who's sinless, as a reward, gets a sinful son who be a cause of detachment from material life. So that may also be there, that it's just to bestow special mercy on him, that the Lord doesn't just give him the picture of complete material enjoyment, but pulls back the curtain. I was talking with Satsrup Maharaj today, and we found this wonderful quote. Let's see if I find it real quick. It's from Kundamala Stotra Prabhupada's purport. Yeah, the so-called wives and husbands, parents and children, and masters and servants are all concerned with material profit. In the material world, all relationships are actually mercenary, but are covered by an illusory curtain of so-called love and affection. As soon as the shroud of illusion is removed, the dead body of material so-called love and affection is at once manifest to the naked eye. So that's, and then Prabhupada explains that that's special mercy by the Lord for the devotee. Hope that answers the question. And then there's a question by Saraswati, right?
Yes, Saraswati. Well, it's a comment. She says, there have been scandals in, before I get to that, Praveen Krishna Prabhu has a follow-up. So if we try to push for something not meant for us, it takes on an unhappy form?
It may. It may. Or it may take on a happy form and then you're stuck with it. Dhruva Maharaj, he was stuck with the kingdom because that was what he aspired for. It was a happy form, but he wasn't very happy with it because he saw this as an obstacle to my spiritual purpose. I could have asked for pure devotional service, and instead I've got this kingdom that I have to rule over. So I got what I wanted, but now I see that that's not what I really should have wanted.
Hare Krishna. So Saraswati Mata had a comment here. There have been scandals in India where couples have gone to pseudo swamis who perform some sacrifices for benediction of having a child and are then cheated in heinous ways, where the wife was assaulted by the swami after giving her sweet prasadam.
Yeah, these things are there. Cheating propensity. The cheaters and the cheated. Yeah, the Swami performs a ceremony for blessing the woman with a child.
Krishna.
Not the business of the sannyasi. In Kali Yuga, what can we expect? Sannyasis may try to seduce the husband also.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'll read the text 38, and then I think we can pause for kirtan, just as a short verse here. 39 has quite a purport. But 38, Sa tat pung savanang rajni prashya vaipatyuradate garbhang kala upavritte kumaram sushuve praja. Although the queen had no son after eating that food, which had the power to produce a male child, she became pregnant by her husband, and in due course of time she gave birth to a son. Purport: among the 10 kinds of purificatory processes, one is pung savanam, in which the wife is offered some prasad, or remnants of foodstuff offered to Lord Vishnu, so that after sexual intercourse with her husband, she may conceive a child. Anything from your side, Maharaj?
Just we see the emphasis here on getting a good child. It's not just for sexual enjoyment, but the purpose is to have a good child.
Jai. Madhupati Prabhu says male child, pung savana.
Yes.
Specifically, male child. Thank you, Prabhu. The other day we were scheduled to hear from Priti Purnamadavi Devi, and time had run out. So I wanted to see if she might like to lead a kirtan to close out tonight's session.
Yes, okay. Jaya Shri Krishna Jaya Jaya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasada Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
I Om Vishnu Pad Purnaman Supari Praj Charja Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nam Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamanamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, for the kirtan. Radhesha Prabhu has a closing comment. Quote from Prabhupada, "There is no good or bad. It is mental concoction. But on the whole, in the material world means everything bad. Spiritual world, everything is good. Material world means absence of spiritual world. That's all. You bring again spiritual world, it is good." Thank you, Prabhu. And thank you so much, Maharaj, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kendra Prabhu.
And thank you, Yadunandan Prabhu, for tuning in. Good to see you.
Mhm.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.